Mazzella here again for Small Business Digest. You know, my wife is a tea lover. I mean, I'm a coffee lover, but I have to tell you what I've from what people have told me about iLola tea. I had to have them on the program. So Anne Marie Hill is here with us today. She and her husband founded the company, and we're going to learn a lot more about it. Anne Marie, thank you for joining us.
No problem, Don. And it's Sumery. Sorry there.
Yes, you're right.
All good, all good.
I even have it written down here, but my audience is used to it by now.
A double barrel name.
Marie,
it's a double barrel name.
I promise I will not make the mistake during the rest of this show.
Not a problem, Don. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate being here and chatting everything tea today.
Well, Sue, tell us first a little bit about yourself and your husband, and what your personal background, and why you founded a tea company.
Do you know, Don, I'm South African, so I grew up in a house where you always had a pot of tea going. The smell of rooibos tea, which is the national tea in South Africa, was always in the house. And my husband is British, so he comes naturally from a long line of tea drinkers. And we moved to Vancouver 13 years ago. And I worked in charities and nonprofits, and my husband was a financial auditor. And we decided we wanted to open a tea shop. And we did that on the Sunshine Coast in Gibsons. It was beautiful, just a small community tea shop that we called 1902, which was the year the war ended between South Africa and England. War. So that's where our first tea journey started.
Okay.
Yes. Since then, we kind of always been, I started doing a tea sommelier course. We started blending and creating our own teas. We had one of the largest ranges of organic teas in North America at that point. But the one thing that stuck to us was that people found loose leaf tea a little bit cumbersome. They never knew how much to use, how much white tea, how much oolong, how much green tea. It was just, a tea bag was so much easier. Mm-hmm. And yet, most of the tea bags in the market space have millions of microplastics in it. It has to, in order for it to heat seal. So, and it's bleached. So you're immediately giving yourself a bleached microplastic cup of tea by, if you're not really picky about the bag of tea that you're choosing.
So what did you do about it?
I created and patented a tea disc. And actually, since you're a coffee drinker, this is our caramel latte tea. It's a morning time here for us still. So I'm actually drinking a coffee tea. This has a little bit of a coffee flavor to it. It's one of my favorites in the mornings. And basically, it's a probiotic binding that holds this disc together.
Tell us more.
Yeah, so we grow the probiotic binding in-house that we then use to handcraft each single disc. So the discs are perfectly weighed and measured for 1 cup. So for example, here I've got my 8-ounce tea traveler that I don't go anywhere with without. So you just take your infuser out. I'll drop my disc in, and there we go. I've got a perfect cup of tea ready to go.
So, but you need that. But you need that in order to really enjoy it. You can't just drop it into a cup.
No, it still leaves. At the end of the day, you need a way, either just a normal infuser that most tea drinkers would have at home. An infuser that you put in your cup or your pot. You can use it with any of your normal, tea paraphernalia that's out there on the market.
Well, now let's stop here. What's your website?
It is iLolatea.com, and you spell iLola iLolattea.com.
Well, now that's a nice, simple one. Okay.
iLolatea.com. Yes, it is. iLola actually comes from the Swahili word to grow strong. It's being South African. And we're a husband-wife team. We have 5 kids under the age of 12. Our life is constantly a journey of growing strong and growing through these moments. So it just resonated with us when we picked our new tea name.
Well, that's exciting. So let's back up. You have it patented. Um, I understand from your people that you're going to the fancy food show in Las Vegas.
Yes, it will be our 3rd Fancy Foods.
Have you been to shows before? Because I only heard about you very tangentially, but have you been in a show before?
We've been to Fancy Foods last year. And it was actually, we just launched into the US in August.
Mm.
And end of August. And since then, we've been on Oprah's favorites for Christmas. We won the USA Today Best Foodie gift. So lots of great things since August.
Oh, okay. But you also have children at the same time.
We have 5 children between the ages of 6 and 12.
Wow. How do you manage it all?
Well, honestly, we have a lot of good tea. No, it's so busy, but our kids are, being a family business, our kids are involved in every step of the way. They've been part of naming some of the tea sets and naming some of the teas. They, clean, they paint walls, they do everything. So it's a good, we have such a great group of kids. They're amazing, and they jump in when we need them, which is often.
Well, let's go back to the process. What made you decide to create? You said because you didn't like the microorganisms, but a lot of people don't like things but don't do anything about it. What made you decide to do something about it?
I've always been interested in changing the food industry. My mum died very young, and had health issues, and it wasn't until I realized that the regulations in the food industry is not, there's so many things that's approved or allowed, and yet it's not good for us. We shouldn't be consuming it. Even the microbial cellulose that we use in our tea. You hear the word cellulose and you see it often in food, in gluten-free bread, and lots of baking products. You see cellulose, but the cellulose that's currently used in food is wood chips that they break down into its pure cellulose form. Now, as humans, we're not meant to consume wood. It's causing, IBS, it's causing digestive issues, but it's allowed and it's considered safe within limitations. So I think this was the first of many ideas that we have, and but being able to change the food industry was always something on my heart. With having seeing my mum die young, having lived a healthy life, but I remember things that they would eat, and now I would never give that to my kids, but they just assumed it was safe and assumed it was healthy. It was, after all, food.
That passed through the system.
Exactly, right? So this is something I can change, in the same way that every day, I'm have to be extremely organized with having 5 kids, and so I get up at 4 o'clock every morning, and I spend an hour of quiet time and focusing my day, and I know exactly what I need to do to succeed for that day. And I think that's how we approach this. It's we can change this, and who knows what comes after this. But this was, something we could do right now.
Mm. Well, let me ask you this. People say, yes, now I'm going to do something. How did you go about creating this product? And will you hold it up again for people can see it?
Oh, yes. Here, let me grab so this is a black tea, sorry, a black tea disc with, this actually has a coffee caramel flavor and coffee beans in it too. I am a coffee drinker as well. So having that flavor in the morning is something I appreciate. But yeah, so the microbial cellulose just holds it together in the disc.
Mm.
And we bind it and process it. It takes about 24 hours to make a disc.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not just, when you're making a tea bag or when you have loose leaf tea, I love the blending process of the tea, but then we have another 30 steps after that creates this disc.
Well, now there's another question, but let's stick on this one. But you decided to do this, but what are the steps that took you to where you are?
Going through what we could use as a binding, when you come into food ingredients, usually it's glucose or sugars, what they use to bind the ingredients. And we wanted to create a probiotic binding. So we actually ferment tea to create the microbial cellulose that we then process into a binding material. So each disc has a certain level of probiotics that does stay alive because they are spore forming. So, you're getting a cup of tea plus probiotics.
Mm. Well, that's good for some people. Yeah, but wouldn't some people say, I don't want probiotics?
Well, you're enjoying it for the cup of tea. The probiotics is just an added benefit. We're not selling it as this is your daily dose of probiotics. It's just that the binding is a probiotic, so there is an added benefit to it.
Hmm. Well, you say it's a 24-hour process. Do you have your own factory? Do you?
Yes, we're currently based in Vancouver, Canada.
But that's a formidable thing to set up a factory and everything. You and your husband did it on your own?
Yes, it's been 12 years since we opened our tea shop, and we definitely have had some ups and downs, and COVID was detrimental for us. We were making beverages for the restaurant industry. So, when COVID hit, that's when we actually ended up taking the step back and spending the time finalizing this process, writing the patent. We brought in some microbiologists and food fermentation specialists and worked with us to create our patent, to get that in. That process alone was a 2-year process.
Well, yes, it is. It's a formidable one.
Exactly. And branding, when we went to Fancy Foods last year, we looked like a very established brand, even though we hadn't actually launched yet, because we spent the 2 years learning from our other businesses and branding and patenting and trademarking. And so by the time we launched, we had all these things in place.
Well, now let's go to the blending. How do you decide what teas to market and which teas to market? And
Don, at this point, we didn't really have too much time to rework our original recipes that we had in our tea shop. Because we've been on such a go process, there's definitely a lot more teas that I would like to bring out. Now there is, green teas are the top consumed tea in North America at this point. You have your standards, your English breakfast, your cream of Earl Grey, the household staples.
Hmm.
And then for us, because health is so important, we create a lot of functional teas. So, for example, we have a tea called Happy, and it has ingredients that is naturally herbs that helps relieve anxiety and relieve stress. So we definitely focus more on incorporating healthy herbs and roots, and things like tulsi is one of our favorites. It's a natural alkaline. So despite just being a tea company, we really focus on adding functional teas.
Well, your website again for our audience so they know it.
It's ilolatea.com. That's ILOLA.com.
And we're talking here with Sue Marie Hill. But now, Sue Marie, let's talk a practical matter. How do you are your teas more expensive, or how do you compare your teas?
Well, it depends on how you. All our teas are re-steepable, so you get 2 cups of tea out of each of your teas. If you think of a tea bag, you would consider, well, depends on which tea bags you choose as well. Cup on cup, we might be a little bit more pricey compared to your mainstream brands, but when it comes to your more luxury teas out there, we're very much on par.
Well, I'm a Twinings man myself, but
We might be a little bit above that.
I would think you are. But but it's an interesting point. When I go to the fancy food show or any of the food shows, I look around, there's 50 or 60 different teas around. How do you how do you separate yourself from them?
Do you know, Don, I think we were naturally separated. The fact that we launched in August. In November 1st, we were named Oprah's favorite tea for Christmas.
Oh,
We won USA Today, which was a voting competition. So I think people naturally look at this and understand that this is different. That this is new. It's a new way of drinking tea. It just takes the guesswork out. I wake up in the morning and one of my kids takes a tea disc and put it in my cup. They don't even have to think about how much tea to put in for me, right? It
yes.
just simplifies loose leaf tea.
What does it do for all the tea leaf readers in the world?
It adds a different dimension with the probiotic binding, I'm sure.
Well, there are people out there. I remember as a young boy, the woman visiting who read the tea leaves, and she was right, amazingly so.
Oh, well, I'm sure we add an extra dimension to the storytelling now.
Okay. We always ask the question, what's your exit strategy?
Um, at this point, we're still growing iLola. We're very in the infinite stage, infinite, but we're baby stage here, right? We're having to run before we even really had a chance to crawl. So we definitely had some hiccups in, this growth scaling that we've gone through in the last few months. So our next year is definitely on streamlining our SOPs, streamlining our processes, really defining, refining the brand. But then who knows where that's going to take us? We are open to exiting for sure. At the end of the day, we are parents to 5 children, but we're enjoying the process right now.
Well, where is your tea available?
Amazon is definitely one of our big, with being on Oprah, we had to launch on Amazon to be part of her Christmas list. And that was definitely a big learning curve really quickly. We haven't sold on Amazon prior to this. We are available in Neiman Marcus. We have a couple of really lovely accounts that we'll be launching in the coming few months.
Okay, we have just a few minutes left. What would you like to leave our audience? First off, give us your website once more. Then, what would you like to leave our audience with?
Okay, the website is iLolat, ilolat.com. I think, as a mum, as an entrepreneur, the fact that I was talking to my husband the other day about the one thing that I've learned, and that is to get up. That basic thing that when things get tough, get up. When, it feels like you just cannot carry on, get up and do something, right? It's just a little thing that you need to start doing. And for us, we looked at the tea industry and we're like, we'd like to change that. So we got up and we did it. And it's something I always teach my kids is that, you can't control the events, but your response defines your outcome. And, growing up in South Africa, battling to move to Canada, I turned up here with 2 suitcases, building a business, building 2, 3 businesses, failing some. There's a lot of learning that happens, but at the end of the day, tomorrow is another day and we get up.
Well, on that note, Sue Marie Hill, we say thank you for a very illuminating time. Thank you.